Here's one for your TiVo. President Bush was right. Our fourth story tonight, the news that the former president even enraged his own vice president, but in this case, last time I'm saying this, President Bush was right. New York Daily News Washington Bureau Chief Tom DeFrank reports that Vice President Cheney is, quote, furious with Bush, according to an unnamed Cheney source, after Mr. Bush refused to pardon Cheney's former chief of staff, Scooter Libby. You may remember that Libby was convicted of perjury and obstruction of justice after he had lied to federal law enforcement about the White House leak of CIA operative Valerie Plame's identity, specifically masking Cheney's knowledge of and involvement in that leak, a leak engineered to punish Plame's husband, former Ambassador Joe Wilson, who are publicly debunking the Bush-Cheney claim that Iraq had tried to buy uranium yellow cake from Niger. I respect the jury's verdict, Mr. Bush said at the time, and thereupon promptly commuted Libby's sentence of 30 months. Libby did not serve a single day in prison, but unprecedented commutation proved insufficient for Mr. Cheney. Quote, he, Cheney, went to the mat and came back and back and back at Bush, pushing a Libby pardon, according to an unnamed Cheney defender. Another quote, he tried to make it happen right up until the very end. On the phone, in person, until Mr. Bush, tired of saying no, told aides he did not want to discuss it anymore. Last month, an official who worked with both men told DeFrank that the relationship, quote, isn't what it was back in 2000. It's been a long, long time since I've heard the president say, run that by the vice president's office. You used to hear that all the time. Today, Matt Lauer asked former Bush advisor Karl Rove, now of Fox Noise, also hip deep in the Plame leak, about DeFrank's report on Cheney's reaction.
I know that he felt strongly about this, but I think the tabloids tend to get these things overblown. These are two very close men who have a long and enduring relationship that's good and positive.
Hasn't been soured because of the lack of a pardon?
Look, no, I don't detect that at all. It's obviously something Dick Cheney feels strongly about, but the president laid out in his commutation of Scooter Libby the grounds on which he was making his decision.
Today, we asked representatives for both Mr. Cheney and Mr. Bush how often the two men have spoken since January 20th, and neither office replied to our question. As for Rove's dismissal of the story because, quote, the tabloids tend to get these things overblown, a quick portrait of tabloid reporter Tom DeFrank, former president of the White House Correspondents Association, covering presidents for longer than anybody not named Helen Thomas, referred to by President Ford as, quote, one of the finest journalists I have ever known, respected too by Mr. Bush, who has granted DeFrank a total of 22 separate interviews. And in 2007, Tom DeFrank's book party was attended by Karl Rove. On Mr. Bush's last day in office, Mr. Bush said he was proud not to have issued last-minute pardons. Nancy Pelosi recalling their conversation, quote, he said people who have gotten pardons are usually people who have influence or know friends in high places, and it's not available to ordinary people. So he was very proud of that. Was Cheney asking for something unavailable to ordinary pardon applicants? On January 21st, Cheney called Libby's conviction, quote, a miscarriage of justice. Justice Department pardon guidelines specifically say, quote, persons seeking a pardon on grounds of innocence or miscarriage of justice bear a formidable burden of persuasion. Other DOJ factors for recommending pardons, input from the prosecutor, which has not happened, and the demoralizing effect on law enforcement of pardoning, quote, a prominent individual. Admission of guilt. None in this case. Expression of remorse, none in this case. And whether the offense was, quote, very serious, e.g. breach of public trust, in which case a suitable length of time should have elapsed in order to avoid denigrating the seriousness of the offense. Libby was convicted in the summer of 2007. There is a minimum 5-year waiting period for pardons. And if you still think Cheney was not seeking special favors for his loyal scapegoat, we called the Justice Department today to ask about the status of Libby's pardon application. He never filed one.